With all that's going on in the world right now, your compassion may be running low, and I get it. In a time when you're trying to serve others and just trying to keep your head above water, your compassion may be waning, and I get it. When all you want to do is to yell at the top of your lungs and are physically and mentally drained after the end of a very busy shift, I get it. And as a doctor, if you may be a nurse, you may be experiencing compassion fatigue. So what exactly is compassion fatigue? Well, according to the Compassion Fatigue Awareness Project, it is broadly defined. It's a broadly defined concept that can include emotional, physical, and spiritual distress in those providing care to another. It's associated with caregiving where people or animals are experiencing significant emotional or physical pain and suffering. Well, the origins of the term compassion fatigue are really unclear. Dr. Charles Figley has been a pioneer in this area. During the Vietnam War, a young psychologist, Dr. Figley, began working with soldiers that were returning from the Vietnam War. And he quickly began to recognize that he was taking on the suffering and pain of the soldiers and making it his own. And Dr. Figley started feeling unsafe around his surroundings and began questioning his morals. His quality of life began to suffer, and he was experiencing what is now known as compassion fatigue, and it has since become his life's work. So that's what we're going to talk about, friends, because compassion fatigue is uniquely different than burnout. And while I've written of second victim syndrome in the past, compassion fatigue is uniquely different. Dr. Pfeifferling, director of the Center for Professional Wellbeing, and she's in Durham, North Carolina, describes it perfectly in an article she had co-authored in FPM. Now, FPM is the American Academy of Family Physicians peer-reviewed practice enhancement journal. So she describes this, I think, absolutely beautifully. She says, whereas physicians with burnout adapt to their exhaustion by becoming less empathetic and more withdrawn, compassion-fatigued physicians continue to give themselves fully to their patients, finding it difficult to maintain a healthy balance of empathy and objectivity. I think that describes it perfectly. Essentially, it's a physician works harder and harder to draw from a well that is, already dry. So compassion fatigue is a process. It's not a destination. While burnout and compassion fatigue both have similarities, the clear difference is their onset and their recovery. Compassion fatigue has a more rapid onset compared to burnout because this is recognized early. If it's recognized early, recovery is quicker. In an American Institute of Stress article, Dr. Oshberg mentions that first you should understand that it is a process. It's not a matter of one day you're living your life with a great deal of energy and enjoyment, and then next you wake up exhausted and mentally devoid of any energy, both physically and emotional. Compassion fatigue develops over time, taking weeks, sometimes years to surface. Basically, it's a low-level chronic clouding of caring and concern for others in your life, whether you work in or outside the home. Over time, your ability to feel and care for others becomes eroded through overuse of your skills and compassion. You might also experience an emotional blunting, whereby you react to situations differently than one would normally expect. I think that's a really good description of it. So what are some symptoms of compassion fatigue? Well, compassion fatigue takes on many forms for different physicians, but there are several similarities, several commonalities that exist. Things such as chronic exhaustion, such as emotional or physical, irritability or anger, reduced feelings of empathy, difficulty sleeping, weight loss, inability to leave the stress of work at work. Drug or alcohol abuse is sometimes seen as well. So you might be asking yourself, okay, Harry, well now what? Learn to recognize and identify problems is a gift that we all have as physicians. Yet we are horrible at recognizing it in ourselves. We are busier than ever, seeing more patients, requiring more charting, and with fewer resources. Additionally, as high-performing physicians, we are especially critical of ourselves and place an unnecessary burden on pursuing perfection. So, with that in mind, it's no surprise that we are struggling with burnout and compassion fatigue. So, there is a better way, friends. While the solutions aren't easy, they are imperative to lifelong success in our personal and our professional lives. This whole video, this whole platform that I have, Medicine Revived, exists for physicians like us who are looking for resources and solutions to learn, grow, and to thrive in medicine. First and foremost, understand that achieving wellness and returning to the strong leader that you once were takes time, and give yourself that first. All too often, we are looked toward to be the strong one and to keep our feelings buried. And perhaps you've been told to, well, keep your chin up and to stay strong. But have those phrases ever helped you? Likely not. And I want you to know that having these feelings are okay. Don't put them on the back burner or try to convince yourself that they simply don't exist. They do, and that's okay. Acknowledge for what they are. And that let's develop a plan to get you away from these feelings toward a life of fulfillment and a life of contentment. So if you're ready, let's get started. Grab yourself a pen and a piece of paper, and we're going to learn 5 ways to heal from compassion fatigue. First one is self-care comes first. There's a great quote that says to give ourselves compassion, we first have to recognize that we are suffering. We can't heal what we can't feel. And that's from Kristen Neff. We can't heal others unless we care for ourselves first. This is non-negotiable. Self-care for me revolves around 3 things: movement, food, and sleep. Exercise and stretching have been a habit that has strengthened my body and my mind. It serves as a keystone habit that the rest of my self-care hinges on. Your exercise or movement regimen doesn't need to be, nor should it be, complicated. The simple act of moving creates the impetus for even more self-care. Next, filling the body with nutritious, unprocessed foods will reduce the lethargy and the brain fog that plagues so many of us. Having a great, tasty, hearty, and healthy meal produces more energy and longevity to our, very often hurried lives. Finally, sleep is equally essential to movement and food. It is the first to suffer related to our self-care. During your weekly review, plan out your workouts, your meals, and your sleep. This is especially important for those of us who have rotating schedules or rotating shifts or call schedules. And as an emergency physician, there are no 2 weeks that look the same for me. Knowing this, I have to be incredibly intentional with my plan. The weekly review with my wife is the first step toward deliberately achieving my physical well-being goals, my self-care goals. So what's our pro tip this week for this particular thing? Schedule it. Self-care isn't going to happen. As with all things we talk here, week after week, we must be intentional about self-care. If it doesn't get scheduled, it simply won't happen. You may have even said to yourself, well, I'll get to the gym if I have time. And it's no surprise that you likely didn't make it. Not for lack of effort or want, it just wasn't scheduled. To start, just look 1 week ahead, just 1 week. And for that entire week, schedule your self-care. Do it in pen, not in pencil. Also give yourself the best chance for success. So for example, don't schedule your workout for 5 p.m. when you know darn well there's a high probability that you won't get off work until later than that. Second thing, friends, is give yourself the gift of time. While you have your calendar out, give yourself the gift of time and create more white space in your calendar. For many of us in medicine, we are encouraged and rewarded to always be moving. We are encouraged to see more patients, attend more meetings, and have all our charting done while being a successful husband, wife, father, mother. Friends, my brothers and sisters in medicine, we need to slow down quickly or the flames of burnout will consume you. So what's our pro tip for this one? Do less. Really, do less. This may seem intuitively obvious, but few of us do this. Creating more white space on your calendar, friends. This is quickly accomplished by looking at your schedule and asking yourself, do I need to attend this meeting or am I needed on this particular project? Now be comfortable with the word no. You may feel that you must commit to accepting every ask to advance professionally. Now, having been in medicine for well over 10 years and in administration for a bunch of those, that mindset is false, completely false. In fact, I have found quite the opposite to be true. Saying no is not easy, but extremely necessary to maintain our wellness. You may feel disappointed that you are letting the person down, but remember that you must make yourself a priority in your path toward wellness. This is not selfish, it is imperative. Remember, saying yes to one thing means saying no to something or someone else. And many times, unfortunately, that someone else is you. So, third thing, friends, control what you can control. Part of compassion fatigue is focusing on the environment around us and trying to fix things beyond our control. When I catch myself on training this mindset, I remind myself of the serenity prayer. It goes something like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Such a wonderful, short little prayer. But when I find myself worrying, or I find myself going down that road, down that mindset, I take a minute and examine the things that I have control or influence over. While I can't prevent a storm, I can prepare for one. And while I can't control how someone behaves, I can surely control how I react. So what's our pro tip for this one? Bookend your days with habits. Now, routines and rituals are quite simply the absolute best way to overcome compassion fatigue. I have been a very, very loud advocate for daily habits, and I bookend my days with my arise morning ritual and my sleep evening ritual. And there's going to be links in the blog post that accompanies this video where you can go take a look at what those are exactly. So take the time to develop your own morning and evening ritual and consider this time sacred. No exception. It can last 15 minutes or up to 60 minutes. Find what works for you and your family, but this must be done daily. Defend it fiercely. Fourth thing, friends, is start the hobby you always wanted to do. Having a healthy hobby is a great way to relieve stress and provide a creative outlet for you. It's also a great way to meet people outside of medicine, which is vitally essential when battling compassion fatigue. So we feel and often convince ourselves that we don't have time for hobbies, or that it's too childish to have a hobby. And that's simply not true. Hobbies need to serve three purposes. Number one, it has to be a distraction or diversion from your daily work. Number two, it's an activity that you enjoy doing. And number three, it's an exercise that enriches and challenges the mind or the body. So what's our pro tip? Don't confuse having an interest with having a hobby. So part of the joy of pursuing a hobby is the doing. You see, hobbies, unlike interests, require action. Now, a hobby can be inspired by an interest, but the key difference is that an active pursuit toward an interest becomes a hobby, because that's what we define a hobby as. So choose a hobby. Shouldn't be complicated or stressful. Look at your past. Was there something you enjoyed as a child that you might still enjoy as an adult? Are there projects around the house that you gave up because you just didn't have the time for it? If you are still struggling to find a hobby, start with something small. Remember, you don't have to find the perfect hobby. In fact, this is the joy in it. There's joy and adventure in exploring new things. The key is to try out new things, get out there, be active, and explore what's out there. But remember, you have to get out there. You have to do the doing. Fifth and final thing, friends, is create community. There are too many physicians and nurses that suffer in solitude. Healing from compassion fatigue requires a community. In a wonderfully written article by Rebecca Clay from the American Psychological Association, Jeffrey White, PhD, says that it may not sound fancy or sophisticated, but building community is the most powerful thing you can do. Compared with other societies, the United States has a very mind-your-own-business culture, prizing independence and self-reliance over community, says White. But anything that takes away from that isolation, peer support will help. So what's our pro tip? Create your tribe of mentors. The community of medicine has fed us a steady diet of rugged individualism. Very early in our medical training, to our detriment, I feel we're taught to be self-sufficient, independent, and the captain of one's ship. But if we were honest with ourselves, we would never have achieved the success that we have had we not had the support of each other. So in that light, I feel that every successful physician should create their own tribe of mentors. When success guru Napoleon Hill interviewed Andrew Carnegie about the secret of his success, he replied that it could be traced back to what he describes as the sum total of the minds of his business partners. In his book, The Law of Success, Hill defines this mastermind group as a mind that is developed through the harmonious cooperation of two or more people who ally themselves for the purpose of accomplishing any given task. So friends, create a weekly meeting with 1 or 2 close colleagues to have a quick meal or a cup of coffee. This act alone has such a powerful effect on our health emotionally and physically. The camaraderie that a colleague has on your work-life balance is so critical. It's a keystone method that a physician needs to heal from compassion fatigue. We do not live on an island. Don't be a hermit. Seek those social connections. Remember, friends, compassion fatigue isn't a destination. My brothers and sisters in medicine, we have certainly been challenged over these past several years. Yet the fact that you have compassion fatigue indicates that you are a magnificent person with a heart for healing and helping others. But in this chapter of your life, though, we need to step back and focus on our healing toward wellness to continue helping those who need us. Use the tips that we talked about today to get you started on this journey. As in many things, the process will be slow at first, but choosing to start today is the most important step you can take. So let's get started. Hope you enjoyed this week's show, friends. If you ever need anything, please reach out to me. Again, go to the blog post that accompanies this video, and I'll be happy to reach back out to you. Until next time, friends, be good to yourself and each other. We'll talk again soon. Bye.